What would you do if your husband brought his mistress to your funeral? Just imagine a cathedral in Chicago packed with 300 people, a white coffin at the altar holding a pregnant woman who died in a way that made no sense. Then the heavy doors at the back swing open. How could you do this? Her husband walks in. He destroyed everything, Dante. Holding hands with the woman he had been sleeping with for over a year. This is disgusting. But here is the secret. Nobody in that cathedral knew. I can't believe this. The woman in that coffin was no victim. She was a mastermind. Everyone thought Sophia Romano was just a devoted mafia wife, standing in her husband's shadow, arranging charity galas and smiling for the cameras. In reality, she had spent 5 years quietly seizing control of his entire criminal empire while he was too arrogant to notice. She had been documenting every murder, every shipment, every dirty deal, building a case that would bury him alive, and she left instructions. Instructions for a video to be played at her funeral. A video designed to destroy everyone who ever underestimated her. What you're about to hear is going to shock you. Please stay with me because the final twist is something nobody could have predicted, not even me. This story is about Sophia Romano, and it is the story of how a dead woman orchestrated the perfect revenge. This story will teach you a powerful lesson. Never underestimate a quiet woman. Never mistake her obedience for weakness. And never believe that someone who seems powerless cannot become the most dangerous person in the room. If you have ever been overlooked, dismissed, or told you were nothing without someone else, this story is for you. Where are you watching from right now? Are you alone? Because you are about to witness something unforgettable. If you have ever felt invisible, this story will remind you that silence can be the most dangerous weapon of all. Stay with me, because what is about to happen will change everything you thought you knew about power. The white coffin sat at the front of Holy Name Cathedral, a haunting and tragic sight. It was surrounded by hundreds of white roses and the soft glow of candles that made shadows dance across the polished marble floors. 300 guests filled the old wooden pews, all dressed in black, their faces showing the kind of deep sadness that comes when someone dies far too young. The air was heavy with the scent of flowers mixed with expensive perfume, but underneath it all was a feeling of complete and utter disbelief. And at the heart of everything, inside that gorgeous coffin that cost more than most people earn in a year, was Sophia Romano, a 32-year-old woman, a wife, a mother-to-be, and now she was gone. Standing in the third row from the front was Maya Chen, clutching a tissue that was already completely soaked. Her black dress felt tight across her chest, as if the grief itself was a heavy weight pressing down on her. Maya had been Sophia's college roommate at Northwestern, her confidant, her sister in every way that mattered. They had been inseparable since freshman year, bonded over late-night study sessions and dreams of changing the world. 14 years of friendship, of whispered secrets, of drying each other's tears and sharing endless laughter. Now all of that was gone, ending here in this cold cathedral with its high-vaulted ceilings and stained glass windows that seemed to mock their sorrow with their bright colors of hope. Sophia was 8 months pregnant when she died, carrying a little girl she was going to name Isabella. The baby survived. She was delivered by emergency cesarean section as her mother's life slipped away. 4 pounds, 2 ounces of pure fight, lying in an incubator in the neonatal intensive care unit with no idea she would never meet the woman who already loved her more than anything. The doctors said it was complications. They used vague terms like unexpected infection, rapid organ failure, sudden decline. They would just shake their heads and quietly say that sometimes these things just happen, that medicine does not have all the answers, that they did everything they could. But Maya knew something they did not. She knew that Sophia had been perfectly healthy throughout her entire pregnancy. She knew she had that special glow that expectant mothers have, that she was strong and full of life, planning a future that should have lasted for many more years. And Maya knew with a certainty that felt like a rock in her stomach that something was terribly wrong with how fast her health had failed. The priest was speaking, his voice a soothing and practiced sound as he quoted scripture to comfort the crowd. He talked about eternal peace and the promise of seeing loved ones again in heaven. Maya could barely hear him. Her attention was locked on the coffin, on the arrangement of white roses on its lid, on the framed photograph next to it showing Sophia looking so happy and vibrant, smiling for the camera with one hand on her pregnant stomach. That was the moment the heavy wooden doors at the back of the cathedral creaked open. The sound echoed through the quiet sanctuary like a gunshot, stopping the priest mid-sentence. Every single person in the church turned around to see what caused the disturbance. The bright afternoon sun streamed in through the open doors, making it hard to see at first, creating silhouettes of two people walking through the light. Dante Romano walked into his wife's funeral like he was attending a business meeting that he found slightly annoying. He was dressed in a charcoal grey suit that must have cost at least $5,000. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and he had the easy confidence of a man who in his 37 years of life had never been denied anything he wanted. He stood tall, walked slowly, and had an expression that could almost seem sad if you did not look closely into his eyes. But it was not Dante who made everyone in the room let out a collective gasp. It was the woman standing next to him. Alessia Marchetti strolled into that funeral holding Dante's hand as if she had every right to be there, as if she was not the other woman, the mistress, the person who destroyed a home by sleeping with another woman's husband while that woman was carrying his child. She was 27 years old with that expensive kind of blonde hair that takes hours at a salon to perfect. A manufactured type of beauty that came from personal trainers, strict diets, and a skincare regimen that cost more than some people's car payments. Her black dress was clearly designer, probably Prada, tailored to show off her figure while trying to look appropriate for a funeral. Her high heels were Louboutins, and they clicked loudly on the marble floor with every step, the sound disgusting in the otherwise silent and sacred cathedral. Maya stood there and watched her walk down the main aisle on the arm of her dead best friend's husband. She felt a coldness spread through her entire body. Behind her she heard a sound she would never forget. It came from the front row, from a small woman who seemed even smaller because of all the weight of grief pressing down on her shoulders. Elena Ricci was 63 years old. She had worked as a seamstress in Chicago's Little Italy for 40 years, hunched over a sewing machine in a cramped shop, stitching designer dresses for wealthy women who never bothered to learn her name. She had saved every penny she could so her daughter could have a better life, could go to college, could escape the cycle of poverty that had defined their family for generations. She had already buried her own mother and her husband, and now she was burying her only child. Through every tragedy, she had always carried herself with a quiet dignity and grace that impressed everyone who knew her. But seeing her son-in-law walk into her daughter's funeral with his mistress broke something inside Elena Ricci. She let out a sound like a wounded animal, a cry of pure pain that cut through all the whispers and gasps, and then her legs gave out from under her. Maya managed to catch her right before she hit the floor, holding her frail body in her arms, feeling her shake with sobs she could not hold back. In that moment, Maya learned something very important. Standing there in that cathedral holding a grieving mother while her daughter's betrayer proudly walked his mistress past the coffin, she understood that when a person shows you their true self during the worst possible moment, a moment when common human decency should be the absolute minimum, you should believe them. Dante was not being cruel because of grief. This was not shock or confusion or some twisted way of seeking comfort. This was Dante Romano finally taking off the mask he had worn for years, finally showing his real face to everyone who had ever mistakenly thought he was a good person. Maya had seen some terrible behavior in her life, had seen people show their true colors in tough situations. But she had never seen someone do it while wearing a $5,000 suit at his pregnant wife's funeral, with his mistress on his arm and a slight smile on his face. Dante led Alessia to the very front row of the cathedral, to the seats that were meant for family, to the places of honor right in front of the coffin that held the woman he had promised to love and honor for the rest of his life. He sat down without even looking at Elena, without a single glance at the woman who had raised the wife he was now burying. Alessia sat down next to him, crossing her legs at the ankle as if she were at a fancy brunch, her expression carefully blank except for the tiny smile playing on her lips. The whispering started almost immediately, spreading through the rows of people like fire in a dry field. Maya saw people taking out their phones even though it was a funeral. She saw them openly recording, holding their screens at angles they must have thought was sneaky. By the time Dante sat down, she was sure the whole disgraceful scene was already spreading across the internet, the gossip already flying through social media and text messages, even as Sophia's coffin sat cold just 20 feet away. The priest had gone silent. He just stood at the pulpit looking completely lost, his speech about heaven now feeling totally hollow because of the drama unfolding right in front of him. For what felt like an eternity, nobody moved. The air in the cathedral was so heavy with tension you could almost taste it, like a bitter mix of anger, shock, and something else that felt strangely like anticipation. That is when the lawyer stood up. Vincent Moretti got to his feet slowly, deliberately. Maya had met him only once, 3 days before, when he had summoned her to his office to tell her things about Sophia that she never knew, secrets that made her wonder if she ever really knew her best friend at all. He was 60 years old with that classic Chicago Italian look. Silver hair brushed back from a high forehead and sharp blue eyes that took in everything but gave away nothing. He had spent 35 years as a prosecutor before switching to private practice, and he carried the quiet confidence of a man who had seen everything and was surprised by nothing. He walked toward the front of the cathedral with steady, deliberate steps, his face set in a serious expression. The priest wordlessly stepped aside, giving the podium to this man who was not on the program. "Ladies and gentlemen," Vincent said, and his voice filled the entire cathedral without him needing to shout. Something in his tone made people sit up and pay attention. The whispers faded away. Even Dante looked up from his phone with the first flicker of worry Maya had seen on his face all day. "Before the service ends, I have been instructed by Sophia Romano to read certain documents here today, in front of all the people she held dear." He took a breath, his eyes scanning the crowd before settling on Dante and Alessia in the front pew. His next words were spoken softly, but they landed like punches. "And everyone who betrayed her." Dante's posture changed just slightly. Next to him, Alessia's perfectly manicured nails dug into his arm, her knuckles turning white. Vincent pulled a large envelope from his jacket pocket, the official kind that lawyers use. He held it high for everyone to see before he slowly and carefully started to break the seal. Maya did not understand what was happening. She had no idea what Sophia had been plotting, what secrets she was hiding, or what kind of plans she had been making while everyone just saw a devoted wife who attended charity galas. But as she stood in that cathedral and watched the blood drain from Dante Romano's face while the attorney prepared to open that envelope, she started to understand something huge. Sophia knew. She knew about the affair, the lies, everything that had been done to her behind her back. But she did not just accept her fate or curl up like a victim. She got ready. Maya watched Dante squirm in his seat as 300 pairs of eyes stared at him with pure disgust. And she thought about what even she had only learned 3 days ago. Sophia used the final months of her life to build an elaborate trap. And every single person who had ever wronged her, who had ever underestimated her, who had ever looked at her sweet face and saw only weakness, had just walked right into it. But to truly understand how we got to this point, with Sophia gone and her husband's mistress sitting in the family section as if she had every right to be there, we need to go back. Back before the cheating, before the secrets and the careful plans made in the dark. Back to the beginning of a love story that was destined to end in both heartbreak and victory. Sophia Eleanor Ritchie grew up in a small apartment above her mother's seamstress shop in Little Italy. It was not the romantic Little Italy you see in movies. It was the real one where immigrant families worked 16-hour days and still struggled to pay rent, where dreams were expensive luxuries and survival was the only goal that mattered. Her mother Elena worked from dawn until midnight, hunched over that ancient sewing machine, her fingers bleeding from needle pricks, her back curved from years of bending over her work. But she always had a warm smile for her daughter. Sophia's father was never part of the story. Elena never mentioned him, and Sophia quickly learned it was a topic to avoid. What Sophia did possess was a sharp mind, a blazing intelligence that her teachers saw right away. It made her stand out from the other kids in their underfunded public school. It made the guidance counselors marvel and say things like, "That girl could really make something of herself if she just gets a fair shot." Eleanor Ricci was going to make sure her daughter got that shot. She picked up extra work anytime she could, taking on rush orders that required all-night sessions, altering wedding dresses for wealthy brides who complained about every stitch. She saved every single dollar that was not for basic survival, stuffing cash into old coffee cans, hiding it under the mattress, depositing it into a bank account she refused to touch no matter how bad things got. When Sophia was 18 years old, she won a full scholarship to Northwestern University. She broke down in tears when she read the acceptance letter. standing in that cramped apartment that smelled like fabric and coffee, holding her entire future in her hands. Elena cried too, realizing all those years of bleeding fingers and aching backs had finally paid off. Sophia showed up to Northwestern with 2 suitcases, $300 in her pocket, and a fierce determination to make it that was almost frightening. She held down 2 jobs while she was in college. She waitressed at a diner near campus, serving entitled students who never tipped well and barely acknowledged she existed. She also worked weekends at the library, shelving books and helping freshmen find research materials. Despite all of that, she kept a perfect grade point average, was on the dean's list every semester, graduated with top honors in criminal justice. It was there that she first met Dante Romano. He was the complete opposite of Sophia. Wealthy while she was poor, connected while she knew no one, confident in a way that only people who have never faced a real struggle can be. His family's fortune went back generations, old Chicago money made from construction contracts, political connections, and businesses that operated in the shadows between legal and illegal. Everyone knew the Romano name. Everyone either feared it or respected it, and often both. Dante was failing his legal ethics course when the university assigned Sophia to be his tutor. He strolled into their first meeting 20 minutes late, wearing a leather jacket that cost more than everything Sophia owned, and he looked at her like she was staff. Honestly, she should have turned around and left right then. Looking back on it now, knowing everything that happened, Maya could see all the warning signs that Sophia either did not see or chose to ignore. The casual way he acted like his time was more important than hers. The way his eyes glanced over her second-hand laptop, her clearance rack clothes, her worn-out shoes. You could almost see him adding up her value in his head and deciding she was not worth much. But a man like Dante Romano did not get where he was without knowing how to manipulate people. He saw something in Sophia during that first session. Maybe he was drawn to her intelligence, her natural beauty, the kind that did not require designer labels or heavy makeup to be noticed. Or perhaps it was something more calculating. Maybe he saw a young woman who had fought for everything her whole life and figured she would be grateful for any attention he decided to give her. So he changed his approach. He began arriving on time for their sessions. He would bring her coffee and remembered exactly how she liked it after being told only once. He started asking about her life, her background, what she hoped to do in the future, and he would listen to her answers as if he were genuinely captivated. He pursued her with everything he had. He would show up at the diner where she worked and order coffee he never drank, just so he could watch her. He sent flowers to her tiny studio apartment, the kind that must have cost a fortune. He wrote her notes that were surprisingly thoughtful for a guy like him. At first, Sophia pushed back. She was not a fool. She understood they were from completely different worlds and knew his family would never approve of a seamstress's daughter. She knew fairy tales were just for children and that happy endings belonged to people who never had to worry about making rent. But Dante was persistent. He was charming. He was incredibly good at telling her exactly what she longed to hear. "I will never be like those people," he told her one night after she finally admitted why she kept him at a distance. "The rich kids who look down on everyone else. That is not me, Sophia. I love you for who you are, not for where you come from. Your past does not matter to me." And she fell for it. God help her, she actually believed him. They were married 4 years later at a private estate in Lake Forest that belonged to the Romano family. Maya was her maid of honor, standing right next to her best friend, wearing a dress she had borrowed and altered herself, just watching Sophia's face shine with a happiness that made her own heart ache with joy for her. Sophia made her own wedding dress. She designed it and sewed every stitch by hand over 6 months, creating something so beautiful that guests whispered about it for years afterward. She did it because Dante's mother, Isabella Romano, refused to pay for a gown for someone she called the help. Maya overheard Isabella say it, not realizing Maya was standing right around the corner. Slum trash does not deserve Vera Wang. No matter how much you dress her up, trash is still trash. Maya really should have told Sophia. She has replayed that moment in her head 1,000 times since, wondering if things might have turned out differently if she had just opened her mouth and shared the truth. But Sophia looked so unbelievably happy that day, standing at the altar in that beautiful handmade dress with flowers woven into her dark hair, saying her vows to a man she loved with every piece of her heart. Maya just could not bring herself to ruin that for her. Maybe that makes her a coward. Maybe it makes her partly responsible for everything that came after. She has had a lot of time to think about it, and she still does not have an answer. The wedding reception was both beautiful and awful at the same time. Beautiful because Sophia was absolutely glowing, the venue was breathtaking, and for a few hours it truly felt like love could overcome the huge gap between their two worlds. Awful because Maya watched Isabella Romano move through the crowd, whispering venom into every ear, making sure everyone knew exactly what she thought of her brand new daughter-in-law. Give it 5 years, Maya heard Isabella tell a woman dripping in diamonds, her voice just loud enough to be overheard. Little Italy trash is still trash. The novelty will wear off and Dante will remember the values he was raised with. 5 years. That was Isabella's prediction. She was wrong by 1 year. The first 3 years of their marriage seemed good, at least from the outside. Sophia and Dante moved into a stunning penthouse on the magnificent mile with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. He worked in the family business, something vague involving construction contracts and city development deals that Sophia was never allowed to ask too many questions about. She took a position as a paralegal at a non-profit legal aid clinic, helping immigrants navigate the system, using her degree to make a real difference in people's lives. Then Sophia discovered Dante's gambling problem. He had lost $75,000 at a casino in Las Vegas. $75,000 in one weekend. Money they did not have, money he had charged against their joint credit cards, and a loan he took out in both of their names without her knowledge or permission. He cried when she confronted him. They looked like real tears. He dropped to his knees in their living room and begged her to forgive him, swore it was a one-time mistake, promised it would never happen again. He said all the things people say when they are caught and desperate and not quite ready to face their problems. Sophia used money from her savings to pay off his debts. She had been saving since she was 16, every tip from the diner, every paycheck from the library, every birthday gift from her mother. When Elena passed away 2 years into the marriage, she left Sophia $75,000, every single penny she had saved over a lifetime of bleeding fingers and aching backs. Sophia gave all of it to Dante without a second thought, with no resentment, because she loved him, because she believed in their marriage, because she thought that was what a good wife was supposed to do. Maya told her she was out of her mind. They were sitting in Maya's apartment in Wicker Park, drinking wine from coffee mugs because all the wine glasses were dirty. Maya looked her right in the eye and said something she remembers perfectly to this day. "Girl, the only thing you should be betting on is whether he remembers your anniversary. Not your entire financial future, not your mother's life savings, and definitely not your peace of mind." Sophia just laughed and told her she worried too much. She said Dante had learned his lesson, that every marriage goes through rough patches and this was just one of theirs. Maya wanted to believe her. She really did. Around that same time, Sophia started what she called a side project. She had always been good with numbers, good at seeing patterns that other people missed. She started doing freelance financial consulting for small businesses in Little Italy, helping restaurant owners manage their books, helping shop owners file their taxes correctly. Just for some extra money, Sophia said. A little cushion in case anything happens again. Dante was completely dismissive of the idea. He came home one evening while Sophia was at her laptop reviewing a client's quarterly reports. He looked over her shoulder with a smirk that made Maya's fists clench when Sophia told her about it later. "That is cute, honey," he said. "You're playing accountant. But you should leave the real business to people who understand how money actually works." Sophia just smiled and nodded and went right back to her work. But Maya knew her best friend. She knew her better than anyone else in the world, or so she thought. She saw something flicker in Sophia's eyes when she told her that story. It was not hurt or disappointment or even acceptance. It was something sharper, something colder, something that almost looked like calculation. Looking back now, Maya believes that was the exact moment everything began to shift. That was the moment Sophia stopped being the naive girl from Little Italy who believed in happily ever afters and started turning into someone else completely. Someone patient, someone strategic, someone dangerous. But Maya did not understand it back then. She did not see what was truly happening behind her best friend's sweet smile and kind personality. She thought Sophia was just coping with a difficult situation, adjusting, doing what women have done for centuries when they find themselves stuck in marriages with no easy way out. Maya had no idea she was secretly building something that would change everything. What would you do if you discovered the person you loved most was destroying you from the inside? Would you leave, or would you stay and build something they could never touch? Hit that like button if you think you know what is coming next, because I promise you, you do not. 6 years into the marriage, Sophia was 7 months pregnant and looked more beautiful than Maya had ever seen her. Pregnancy agreed with her in ways that defied all the horror stories other women told about swollen ankles and constant nausea. She was simply luminous, soft around the edges in the most perfect way, with one hand always resting on her belly as if she were protecting something incredibly precious. And of course she was. They met for lunch on a Thursday in early autumn at a small cafe in Lincoln Park that served the kind of expensive avocado toast that Instagram influencers pretended to eat. Sophia was already there when Maya walked in, sitting at a table by the window with sunlight streaming across her face, making her look like a painting of the perfect mother-to-be. But something was off. Maya could see it the second she sat down. There was a tightness around Sophia's eyes that her smile could not quite erase, a tension in her shoulders that told Maya there had been sleepless nights and hard decisions. "Tell me," Maya said, skipping the small talk because they knew each other too well for pretense. Sophia took a long breath. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a credit card statement. "I found this last week," she said quietly. "Look at the charges." Third line from the bottom. Maya looked. It was a jewelry store. Cartier. A charge for $6,200. "He bought me jewelry," Sophia said, her voice completely flat. "Except he never gave me any jewelry. No necklace, no earrings, no bracelet. Nothing." "Maybe it is a surprise," Maya suggested weakly. "Maybe he is waiting for a special occasion." Sophia just shook her head. "I checked our closet, his drawers, his office at the penthouse. There is no jewelry box hidden anywhere. No receipt for a future pickup. Nothing. So where did $6,000 worth of Cartier jewelry go?" Sophia's eyes met Maya's, and what she saw in them made her stomach drop. It was not surprise or confusion or even anger. It was resignation, as if she already knew the answer deep down and was just waiting for the proof to finally appear. "That is what I need to find out," Sophia said. She did not confront Dante about it right away. Maya learned that was not Sophia's style anymore. She had spent too many years watching how powerful people handled problems, had learned that knowledge is power and that the person who acts first is not always the one who wins in the end. Instead, she hired a private investigator. His name was Robert Chen, a former Chicago police detective who specialized in what he gently called domestic surveillance. Sophia paid him with money from her consulting business, which she mentioned was doing pretty well these days. Maya did not think much about that comment at the time. Pretty well could mean anything, like a few thousand a month, enough to cover expenses without touching the household accounts that Dante watched like a hawk. Maya was about to learn the true meaning of pretty well. The photographs arrived less than a week later. Sophia called Maya on a Tuesday night, her voice unnaturally calm, the kind of steady that comes from holding yourself together with pure willpower. She asked if Maya could come to the penthouse, explained that Dante was working late, said she needed her to see something. Maya took an Uber to the Magnificent Mile, to that stunning building she had always secretly envied for its luxury and elegance. When Sophia opened the door, her eyes were red-rimmed and she was clutching a manila envelope to her chest as if it held a bomb. It might as well have. With hands that shook, Sophia laid the photos out on her dining room table. They showed Dante with a blonde woman at a restaurant in River North, their faces inches apart in intimate conversation. Another showed his hand resting on top of hers on the white tablecloth. Then there was Dante with the same woman checking into a boutique hotel in the Gold Coast, their arms wrapped around each other's waists. The last photos showed Dante and the woman on a yacht. The geotag identified it as Lake Geneva, strolling hand in hand on the deck like a couple on their honeymoon. The woman was Alessia Marchetti, 27 years old, a junior associate at Romano Development Group. She had 92,000 followers on Instagram, where she posted perfectly staged photos of a luxurious lifestyle. Designer handbags and first-class flights and rooftop bars. Maya suddenly understood that her best friend's husband was paying for all of it. "How long?" Maya asked, even though she was not sure she could handle the answer. "The investigator believes at least 10 months, Sophia said quietly. "Possibly longer." It started before I got pregnant, maybe even before we knew there was going to be a baby." They sat there in silence for a long time, the photographs scattered between them like evidence from a crime scene, which in a way they were. "What are you going to do?" Maya asked. Sophia's expression hardened in a way Maya had never seen before. "I am going to think," she said. "I am going to plan. And when I finally make my move, I will be ready for anything." She waited another full week before she confronted Dante. She used that time to prepare, but Maya had no idea just how extensive her preparations were or what they were for. When she finally mentioned the affair, they were in the kitchen of their penthouse. Sophia was composed and in control. She held the photographs in her hand and asked a very simple question. "How long has this been going on?" Dante made no attempt to deny it. He offered no apology. He did not get on his knees and plead for forgiveness the way he had when she discovered his gambling. Instead, he went on the attack. "You have been so boring ever since you got pregnant," he said, and every word felt like a physical blow. "All you talk about is the baby. Nursery colors and pediatricians and which stroller we should buy. You go on and on about symptoms, and it is exhausting, Sophia. When I get home from work, I need to be with someone who can hold a conversation about something other than pregnancy." Sophia just stood there, 7 months pregnant, one hand instinctively moving to protect her belly as she absorbed every cruel word. "Alessia understands the kind of pressure I am under," Dante continued. "She actually appreciates what I do. She does not complain about me working late or spending time at the office. She is supportive and she is exciting. She is everything you were before you turned into this incubator." "Incubator?" He had just called his pregnant wife an incubator, said it as casually as someone might comment on the weather. But Dante was not finished. It seemed a deep well of cruelty had been building inside him for years, held back by the thinnest layer of decency, and now that poison was spilling out. "And what are you going to do about it anyway?" he sneered, moving closer to tower over her. "You going to leave me? On what money?" "You have absolutely nothing without me, Sophia. Your paralegal salary would not even cover rent for a studio apartment in this city. And that little side business of yours helping pizza shop owners with their taxes? Please. That is a hobby, not a real income." He was right in front of her now, using his physical presence to intimidate. "Your mother was a seamstress in some back alley shop, and you are exactly like her. A nobody. A charity case I rescued. I pulled you out of Little Italy, and I gave you a life you could never have dreamed of on your own. Everything you have, everything you are, is because of me." His voice dropped to a whisper somehow more menacing than if he had been yelling. "Do you have any idea what will happen if you try to divorce me? You will lose this penthouse. You will lose access to our accounts. You will lose the baby. My family has the best lawyers in Chicago, people who have been working for the Romanos since before you were born. Your family has nothing. No money, no influence, no power. You would waste years fighting me in court, and when it was all over you would have nothing left. You would end up exactly where you started, broke and alone in some ratty apartment. You would see our daughter on weekends if you were lucky. Is that what you want? Is that what you want for our child?" Sophia said nothing. She could not speak. Her voice was completely stolen by the depth of his cruelty. Stolen by the sudden horrible realization that the man she married, the man she had loved and sacrificed everything for, had never been real. After he left that night to be with Alessia, Sophia drove to a parking garage on Michigan Avenue. She sat in her car for 2 hours and cried until there was nothing left, until her eyes were swollen shut, her throat raw, her hands aching from gripping the steering wheel. She called Maya from that garage, sobbing so hard Maya could barely understand what she was saying. Maya's first instinct was to get in her car and drive there immediately, to hold her and tell her it would be okay. But Sophia refused. She said she needed to think, needed to decide her next move, needed to be alone. That night taught Maya something important, a lesson that has stuck with her forever. When a man tells you that you are nothing without him, he is not making a threat. He is giving you a confession. He is telling you his deepest fear, the one that keeps him up at night, the truth he can never bring himself to face. He is terrified that you are going to figure out that he is the one who is nothing without you, that all his money and power and connections are worthless if you choose to leave, that he has built his entire identity on making you feel small because if you ever stood up to your full height, he would be exposed as the pathetic, insecure man he truly is. After those 2 hours in the parking garage, Sophia wiped away her tears. She took out her phone and dialed a number Maya had never seen before. "Vincent," she said, her voice now firm and cold in a way that sent chills through Maya when she told her about it later. "It is Sophia. I think it is time. Set everything into motion." That was the moment Maya discovered the truth about her best friend, a secret she had kept hidden for 5 years, quietly building something incredible while everyone, including Maya, saw only a sweet wife who attended charity events. Her consulting business was not just a side project. It was not something that brought in a few thousand a month to cover expenses. It was a $43 million enterprise called Rickshee Financial Solutions, and it was one of the fastest-growing financial consulting firms in the Midwest. The company had partnerships with over 200 small businesses, had expanded into corporate consulting, had multiple revenue streams from auditing services to tax preparation to investment advising. Sophia had built the entire thing by herself, piece by piece, working early mornings and late nights while Dante assumed she was doing paperwork for the legal aid clinic. She had incorporated the business in Delaware 2 years before they married and placed everything into an irrevocable trust that her husband had no legal access to. She had hired a team of accountants and consultants, negotiated major contracts with restaurant chains and retail groups, made brilliant strategic moves that transformed her small side project into an empire. And Dante knew nothing about it. Not a single thing. He believed she made maybe $2,000 or $3,000 a month helping shop owners, pocket change she did not even bother to track. He believed she was nothing without him. He believed he held all the power in their marriage. He thought he could bully her with threats of poverty and custody battles, certain she had no other option but to stay. He was about to find out just how wrong he was. 3 days after her confrontation with Dante, Sophia had a meeting with Vincent Moretti. They met in a small cafe in Pilsen that she picked for one reason: no one from their Gold Coast social circle would ever be caught there. Maya was with her because Sophia insisted. She said she needed a witness, someone she trusted completely who could confirm that every action she was about to take was legal, documented, and completely legitimate. Vincent Moretti had known Sophia's mother for many years. He had worked as a prosecutor in the neighborhood where Elena's shop was located, back when he was young and idealistic and believed the system could actually deliver justice. Elena had kept him supplied with coffee and homemade biscotti during long nights preparing cases, had listened to him complain about corrupt cops and crooked judges, and the two had formed an unlikely friendship that endured for decades. When Sophia needed legal guidance on starting her business, she called Vincent. When she needed help structuring her company to protect it from a husband she was already starting to distrust, she called Vincent. And when she finally understood that her marriage was built on lies and that she had to protect herself and her unborn child, she called Vincent. He laid out documents on the cafe table with the smooth efficiency of someone who had done this countless times. But Maya could see a spark of satisfaction in his eyes as he detailed what Sophia had created. "The company is secured in an irrevocable trust," he explained, his voice low even though they were in a private corner booth. "It was created before your marriage and funded solely with money you earned yourself. Dante has absolutely no legal right to any of it. He cannot access the funds, he cannot dissolve the trust, he cannot even know about its existence unless you tell him." He tapped a different file. "This contains documentation of his activities. Gambling losses, financial deception, proof of the affair including dates and locations and photographs. Every lie he told you, every promise he broke, every time he accessed your joint accounts without permission." Maya just stared at the thick stack of papers, at the incredible amount of evidence her best friend had gathered while none of them had any idea. "How long have you been collecting this?" she asked. 5 years, Sophia replied, her voice completely steady. "It started the first time I discovered he was gambling. I knew something was wrong even if I tried to deny it to myself. So I began keeping records. Just to be safe. Just to be safe." She had been married for 6 years, and for 5 of those years she had been secretly and systematically building a case against the man she married, preparing for a day she hoped would never come but was far too intelligent not to be ready for. "What is the plan now?" Maya asked. "Now we wait," Vincent said. "Sophia needs to have the baby safely first. We need to ensure the child's future is legally protected before we take any action. And we need to make sure that when we do move, Dante has absolutely no way out, no hidden assets, no legal workarounds, no chance to turn this against Sophia. Sophia nodded, her hand resting on her pregnant belly. And I found something else, she added quietly. Something that changes everything. She laid out what she called the Costa Rica file. Dante was planning to empty their joint accounts right after the baby was born. He had already purchased plane tickets for himself and Alessia, first class to San Jose with a connection to a private resort on the Pacific coast. His plan was to grab every accessible dollar and disappear to a country with limited extradition, leaving Sophia with a newborn baby and mountains of debt. He has been moving money for months, Sophia explained. Small transfers designed not to raise red flags. I only discovered it because I have been monitoring our accounts obsessively. He has almost $200,000 sitting in an account in the Cayman Islands. Then she smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. It was the expression of someone who had just watched their opponent walk into checkmate. He has no idea that I know, she said. He has no clue that I have been 10 steps ahead of him for years. He thinks I am helpless. He thinks I have no options. That will be his biggest mistake. Maya remembers leaving that cafe with a storm of feelings in her chest. Pride for her friend who had shown more courage and strategic brilliance than anyone she had ever met. Fear for what was coming, for the fight that was about to begin. And something else too, something she did not have a name for back then. Maybe it was the realization that the woman she thought she knew, a kind-hearted Sophia who cried at commercials and volunteered at animal shelters, had also been secretly building a $43 million empire while her husband believed she was irrelevant. Record everything, Sophia told her as they walked toward the train station. Save screenshots, make audio recordings, keep bank statements. When you are in a fight with someone who has more power, information is the only weapon you have. Build your evidence, Maya. You never know when you will need it. Maya thought it was good advice, the kind of thing you hear and tuck away without ever thinking you will actually use it. She had no idea how soon those words would become her own survival guide. The weeks that followed were filled with tension that felt like waiting for a storm. Sophia played her role to perfection. She was the devoted pregnant wife who suspected nothing, who spent her time worrying about nursery colors and baby name lists, all while her husband continued his affair with more and more boldness. She smiled when Dante came home late smelling of Alessia's perfume. She nodded understandingly when he claimed his weekend trips were unavoidable business emergencies. She waited and watched and documented everything. She called Maya one afternoon, her voice filled with excitement she could barely contain. I have his entire escape plan, she said. Every detail. The offshore accounts, the tickets to Costa Rica, the fake identification he had made. A fake identification. He had been planning this for longer than Maya had even guessed. He had a complete second identity prepared, ready to launch the moment things got difficult. Sophia laughed then, and it was the sound of pure victory. He has no idea I have copies of everything. He thinks his secret email account is secure because he chose a password he thought I would never figure out. He does not realize I installed monitoring software on his laptop 3 years ago. Good God, Sophia, Maya said. I know, Sophia replied, sounding almost giddy. I know it sounds extreme. But you have to understand, Maya. I have lived with this man for 6 years. I know exactly what he is capable of, and I understood from the beginning that if our marriage ever fell apart, I needed insurance. What are you going to do with all this evidence? Maya asked. Nothing for now, Sophia said. I am going to wait until Isabella is born, until she is safe and healthy and protected. And then I am going to burn his entire world to the ground. It was the first time she had said the baby's name out loud to anyone except Maya. Isabella. She was naming her daughter after Dante's mother, the woman who had called her trash, who had whispered poison at her wedding, who had made it clear from day one that Sophia would never be good enough for the Romano family. Maya understood then that this was not just about justice or revenge or protecting herself. This was about making a statement, about taking the Romano name and giving it to a child who would inherit everything while Dante ended up with nothing. In that moment, despite everything, Maya truly believed it was all going to be okay. She was sure that Sophia had planned for every possibility, that she was going to come out on top, that the good guys were finally going to win. She should have known better. She should have remembered that real life does not follow a script, that even the most carefully constructed plans can be shattered by events no one could see coming. Are you still watching? What time is it where you are right now? Are you listening alone, or is someone there with you? Because what happens next, you need to hear every word. This is where everything falls apart before it comes back together. Stay with me. 3 terrible things happened in the space of 2 weeks, one right after the other, like dominoes set up by a cruel hand. Each disaster was catastrophic by itself, but together they nearly destroyed everything Sophia had spent years building. The first came without warning. Sophia was at the legal aid clinic speaking to a client about an immigration case when she felt a sudden sharp pain tear through her belly, followed by warmth spreading down her legs. She looked down and saw red pooling on the tile floor. The next several hours were a blur of sirens and hospital hallways and doctors speaking in grim, urgent tones. Emergency cesarean section at 33 weeks. The baby was dangerously premature. Placental abruption. They had to operate immediately or they would lose them both. Isabella Romano entered the world at 2:17 in the afternoon on a cold September day, weighing 4 pounds 2 ounces. She was immediately taken to the neonatal intensive care unit where tubes and monitors would keep her alive while her tiny body fought to master what nature had not given her enough time to learn. Sophia barely survived the surgery. She lost a shocking amount of blood. Her blood pressure dropped so low the doctors were not sure she would make it through the night. But she did, because Sophia was never someone who gave up, because she had far too much left to do to let go. She woke up in a hospital bed 3 days later feeling as weak as a newborn kitten, her body one massive collection of pain and exhaustion. The first thing she asked for was Isabella. The second thing she asked for was her phone. She was powerless to execute her plan from a hospital bed. She could not meet with Vincent, could not monitor Dante's accounts, could not finalize the legal documents meant to protect her daughter. Every day she spent in recovery was another day for Dante to potentially discover what she had been working on, to find some way to escape, to disappear to Costa Rica before she had the power to stop him. Maya visited every day, bringing magazines Sophia never looked at and smoothies she could barely sip. She watched her get more and more stressed as her body refused to heal on her timeline. Sophia was supposed to be in control. She was supposed to be strong. Instead, she was trapped in a hospital bed, at the mercy of doctors and nurses and a husband whose visits were brief and always felt like obligations. That first catastrophe was the loss of her time, her strength, her control. The second disaster arrived 4 days later, and it was a visitor Sophia never saw coming. Isabella Romano, Dante's mother, walked into the hospital room with a flower arrangement and a cashmere baby blanket, wearing an outfit that probably cost more than Maya earned in a month. She pressed a kiss to Sophia's cheek with lips that had never known genuine warmth and settled into a chair as if she planned to stay a while. "I am here to help," Isabella announced sweetly. "Dante is so busy with work and you need someone to take care of you while you recover. We are family after all." Sophia was too exhausted to fight, too medicated to see the quick, hungry glances Isabella shot toward her phone on the nightstand, her laptop in the bag near the window. She was too weak to recognize the predator hiding behind concern. When Maya arrived later that afternoon carrying Sophia's favorite cookies and a new book, she gently pushed the door open expecting to find her resting alone or with a nurse. Instead, she saw Isabella Romano leaning over Sophia's bedside table with Sophia's phone in her hands, scrolling through it with intense concentration. Sophia was fast asleep, completely oblivious. The machines next to her bed beeping steadily as they delivered medication that kept her sedated so her body could heal. She had no clue what was happening 3 feet away. "Isabella," Maya said sharply. Isabella's head snapped up, and for a split second Maya saw triumph flash in her eyes, the look of a hunter that has finally trapped its prey. Just as quickly it vanished, replaced by a friendly smile and innocent expression that would have fooled anyone not paying attention. "Maya, dear, I was just checking if Sophia had any urgent messages," Isabella said smoothly, placing the phone back on the table. "You know how she worries about her little projects." She gathered her things without a hint of guilt. "I have to run, but I will be back tomorrow. Make sure she rests." She breezed out, leaving behind the faint smell of expensive perfume and a cold, heavy feeling in Maya's stomach that something terrible had just occurred. The moment Isabella left, Maya grabbed Sophia's phone. She did not have the password, but the lock screen showed recently used apps. Email, notes, documents, all opened within the past hour. Maya shook Sophia awake and explained everything. As she spoke, the color drained from Sophia's face. Her hands shook when she took the phone and looked through the history, confirming every app Isabella had accessed. Emails about the divorce. Texts to Vincent. Files mentioning Rikshi Financial Solutions and its $43 million valuation. She knows, Sophia whispered, her voice barely audible. She knows everything. That night Isabella made a call to Dante. It was only later, when all the pieces came together, that they learned what she revealed. She told him about Sophia's secret company, the divorce papers being prepared, all the evidence Sophia had collected against him. She laid it out completely. The next morning, Dante Romano descended on the hospital like a force of nature. He barged into Sophia's room just as she was attempting to breastfeed Isabella. For the first time, her body still incredibly weak, her mind hazy from medication. The baby was not latching, and Sophia was already crying from frustration when her husband suddenly appeared, standing over her bed with fury in his eyes. "You think you can leave me?" he hissed, quiet enough to avoid nurses in the hall, but sharp enough to wound. "You think your little accounting firm is going to scare me? I know everything now, Sophia. My mother told me absolutely everything." He moved closer, so close she could smell coffee on his breath. "I will destroy you in court. I will take Isabella from you. My mother will testify that you are mentally unstable, that pregnancy broke your mind, that you are an unfit mother. You will never see your daughter again." Hospital security finally removed him 10 minutes later, after a nurse heard Sophia sobbing and came to investigate. But the damage was done. All her careful strategies, her detailed preparations, her dreams of decisive victory, completely destroyed by her mother-in-law's betrayal and her husband's uncontrollable rage. She cried for hours after he left, just holding Isabella tightly and sobbing until she had no tears remaining, until her eyes were swollen shut and her voice was gone, and the heart monitor next to her bed began sounding alarms. That was the second catastrophe. The loss of her secrets, her advantage, her element of surprise. The third disaster was the most devastating of all. In the days that followed, Sophia's health took a sharp downturn. The doctors said it was an infection, but they seemed confused by how aggressive it was, how it resisted every antibiotic they tried. Her fever climbed dangerously high and her organs started showing signs of distress. Her recovery, which should have been progressing, was now going in reverse. Maya started noticing something strange during Isabella Romano's daily visits. She would arrive with deep concern, bringing special herbal tea from a wellness company in Connecticut, insisting it would speed Sophia's healing. "This is an old family recipe," Isabella would say, pushing a hot mug into Sophia's trembling hands. "My grandmother swore by it. It has healing properties you cannot get from modern medicine." Sophia would drink it to be polite, to keep the peace, to avoid another confrontation when she felt too weak to defend herself. The night after Isabella's fourth visit with the tea, Sophia's monitor began shrieking. "Code blue," a calm voice announced over the hospital speaker system. "Crash cart to room 512. Maya was in the waiting room, having dozed off in a horribly uncomfortable chair because she had not left the hospital in 4 days. She heard the announcement and cold dread washed over her. She knew it was Sophia. She sprinted to the room and pressed her face to the window, watching in horror as a team of doctors and nurses surrounded Sophia's bed. Her heart had stopped. Her organs were shutting down. She was dying right there, and all Maya could do was stand outside and pray to a God she was not even sure she believed in anymore. They brought her back twice. After the second time, they were not confident she would survive the night. But she did. She was a fighter. When she finally opened her eyes the next morning, Maya was right there holding her hand as if her touch alone could keep Sophia anchored to this world. Sophia looked at her with a startling clarity that cut through the haze of drugs and exhaustion. Then she spoke 3 words that changed everything. "Isabella is poisoning me." Sophia, Maya began, about to dismiss it as paranoia brought on by fever, as anything but the truth, even though her gut was screaming. "I saved the cup," Sophia said, her voice faint but firm. "The last cup of tea she brought. It is in the drawer of my nightstand. You need to get it tested, Maya, and get samples of my blood and hair from the hospital with documented chain of custody." She gripped Maya's wrist with surprising strength. I am not going to survive this. I can feel it, Maya. Whatever she is giving me is winning. But I will not let them win. Not Isabella, not Dante, none of them. She made Maya swear that day. Promise to play the video I recorded, make sure everyone is watching when the truth comes out, protect Isabella no matter what happens. Maya made those promises and she meant every word. She just had no idea what it would cost to keep them. Sophia was transferred to hospice care on a rainy Tuesday morning exactly 3 weeks after Isabella was born. The infection had spread despite every antibiotic the doctors tried. Her organs failing in slow motion, shutting down one by one like a machine grinding to a halt. The doctors were completely baffled and frustrated. A healthy 32-year-old woman should not decline this fast, they kept saying. There has to be something we are missing. Maya knew exactly what they were missing. She had already sent the teacup to a private lab for analysis, paying with money from an emergency account Sophia had insisted she use. The results were going to take time. Time Sophia no longer had. But Maya knew what they would find. Isabella Romano had been poisoning her daughter-in-law slowly and systematically, with the cold patience of someone who had been planning this for a very long time. Detective Angela Ramirez found Maya in the hospital cafeteria the day before Sophia was moved to hospice. She was a tough-looking woman in her mid-40s with 20 years on the force. Weathered face and sharp eyes that came from seeing the worst of humanity and still finding a way to carry on. I knew her mother, Ramirez said, sitting down with coffee that looked like it had been brewed hours ago. Eleanor Ricci. I worked cases in Little Italy when I was starting out, back when I thought I could change the world. She was one of the kindest people I ever met. Her daughter was too, from what I remember. She took a long drink of the terrible coffee and looked at Maya closely. Something is not right here. Healthy young mothers do not just decline like this. The medical team is stumped, which usually means they are avoiding a possibility they do not want to consider. What are you saying? Maya asked. I am saying I am looking into this quietly, off the record for now until I find something concrete. But if you know anything that could explain why a healthy woman is dying in that bed upstairs, you need to tell me now. Maya explained everything. The teacup, Isabella's constant visits with her special tea, Sophia's certainty that her mother-in-law was trying to kill her. Ramirez listened quietly, her face growing more serious with every detail. Get me the lab report, she said as soon as Maya finished, and any other documentation Sophia kept. If my suspicion is correct, we are going to need every piece of evidence we can find. Sophia spent her final days in a hospice room with a window overlooking a garden she was too frail to ever walk in. Late afternoon sun poured through the glass, bathing everything in warm golden light. The machines beside her bed beeped softly, counting down the little time she had left. Maya was there every day, holding her hand, talking about everything and nothing. Some days Sophia was perfectly clear, her mind sharp even through the medication and her failing body. Other days she would drift in and out, murmuring about butterflies and financial statements and a little girl named Isabella she would never see grow up. The last time she was completely lucid, she made Maya renew her promise. I wrote letters, she said, her voice so soft it was almost a whisper, for Isabella. One for every birthday until she turns 18. For her first day of school, her first heartbreak, her graduation, her wedding day. Tears started rolling down Maya's face. Let me finish, Sophia said, gripping Maya's hand with strength that surprised her. I wrote them for every moment I am going to miss, for everything I wanted to teach her. My words will be there even when I cannot be. She took a ragged breath, and I wrote other letters too. For Dante, for Alessia, for Isabella Romano. A different kind of letter. The kind they will not be able to ignore or deny or pretend they never received. A faint smile touched her lips, weak and sad, but still showing that fierce spirit that was uniquely Sophia's. They think I am dying, defeated and broken. They think they won, that they got away with it, that the girl from Little Italy finally got what was coming to her. They have no idea what is about to happen, Maya. Not a clue. I spent 5 years building a $43 million company while my husband thought I was doing bookkeeping for pizza shops. I beat him at a game he never even knew he was playing. If that does not make me brilliant, I do not know what does. She gave a quiet laugh that turned into a cough, her small frame shaking. Promise me you will play the video. Promise everyone will be there to see it. Isabella Romano especially, Dante especially, and his Instagram princess especially. I promise, Maya told her, meaning it with her entire soul. Promise me you will take care of Isabella, that you will raise her to be strong. Tell her about me, the real me, not the victim they are going to try to paint. Tell her I fought for her until my last breath. I promise. Promise me you will finish what I started. There is a folder in Vincent's office marked Phase 2. If Dante ever tries to threaten Isabella, if he ever tries to take what belongs to her, you open that folder and you burn his world down. I promise, Sophia. I promise all of it. She passed away at 3:47 in the morning on a cold Tuesday in October. Maya was the only person with her, holding her hand as the monitors went flat and deep silence fell over the room. The nurses came and went. The hospice chaplain spoke words Maya could not hear. Outside, the rain that had been falling all day finally stopped and the first trace of dawn started brightening the dark sky. Sophia's final words were a whisper so quiet Maya almost did not catch them. Make them watch, Maya. Every last one of them. I will, Maya whispered back even though Sophia was already gone. I absolutely will. Now we return to the funeral, to Holy Name Cathedral, to Vincent Moretti standing at the podium with that envelope in his hands. To 300 people holding their breath waiting to discover what Sophia Romano had left behind. Vincent's voice filled the cathedral as he began to read. I, Sophia Eleanor Romano, being of sound mind and body, do hereby declare this document to be my last will and testament. He read the introduction slowly, deliberately, building suspense in a way that made even Maya want to scream for him to get to the point. And then he delivered the first revelation and the entire atmosphere shifted. To my daughter, Isabella Marie Romano, I leave all of my shares in Ricci Financial Solutions, a company I founded and built over the last 5 years. These shares will be held in a secure trust managed by my dear friend and sole trustee Maya Chen until Isabella turns 25. He paused to let the words sink in. At the time of my passing, Ricci Financial Solutions was valued at $43 million. Current financial forecasts predict the company will reach $70 million within 2 years. A collective gasp echoed through the cathedral. Dante's head shot up, his boredom instantly replaced by confusion that twisted into terror. That is not possible, he said loud enough for everyone to hear. She did consulting for small businesses. She made maybe a few thousand a month. Vincent looked down at him with patient disdain. Mrs. Romano was the sole owner and chief executive officer of Ricci Financial Solutions, one of the fastest-growing financial consulting firms in the Midwest. The company was founded before your marriage and structured within a trust that kept it completely separate from marital assets. You are unaware of its existence because Mrs. Romano chose not to tell you. Isabella Romano jumped to her feet. This is fraud. She was hiding assets. That is illegal. It is perfectly legal, Vincent answered calmly. The company was started before the marriage. All growth was financed by company revenue, not marital funds. I have 5 years of documentation proving Mrs. Romano built this entirely on her own without a single dollar from Mr. Romano. I suggest you sit down, Mrs. Romano. Isabella did not sit. She stood there trembling with fury until Dante yanked her back into the pew. Dante tried to regain composure. Maya watched him physically pull himself together, adjusting his tie and schooling his features. Fine, he said. Whatever. As Isabella's father The money stays in the family. Vincent did not blink. I have not finished, Mr. Romano. I think the next part will address your assumption regarding parental rights. He clicked a button on a remote and a screen lowered from the ceiling behind the coffin. Sophia's face filled the screen, filmed from her hospice bed days before she died. She looked awful, so thin and pale with dark circles beneath her eyes, her body clearly giving out. But her eyes were bright and fierce with an almost playful look that made Maya's heart ache with both pride and sadness. Hello, Dante, Sophia's voice came clearly through the cathedral speakers. Alessia, Isabella. If you are seeing this, it means I am gone and you are probably feeling very pleased with yourselves. She let silence hang in the air. Surprised about the money, of course. But you are already thinking you will figure it out. Assume you will get custody of Isabella, take control of the trust, find some legal loophole your lawyers missed. You think you have one. You always think you have one because people like you cannot comprehend a world where someone like me could outsmart you. She paused, a small smile appearing. You have no idea what is coming. So sit down, shut up, and listen closely. Class is in session. The video continued, and with every word Sophia spoke, the world Dante, Alessia, and Isabella had built started to crack. Alessia, I want to thank you, Sophia said. I know that sounds strange, but listen. When I first discovered you were having an affair with my husband, I was shattered. I cried for 3 days straight. I felt like my life was over, that everything I worked for had been ruined by a 27-year-old influencer who could not respect boundaries. She paused, her smile becoming razor-sharp. But then I got angry, and after anger came clarity. When I started really looking into Dante's secrets, I stumbled on something fascinating about my own life, something I had never thought to question. Documents flashed on the screen. Official DNA test results with lab letterhead and clinical data. Dante, Isabella is not your daughter. The cathedral erupted into chaos. People shouting, gasping, jumping from their seats. Dante's face turned white as paper, his mouth hanging open as he struggled to make sound. I had an affair too, Sophia's voice continued steady and calm above the noise. Just once, 4 years ago, right after I discovered your first big gambling debt. The one you swore was a one-time mistake. I met someone at a financial conference who treated me with kindness, who saw me as a person instead of a trophy or project to fix, who actually listened instead of waiting for his turn to speak. She gave a slight shrug. I am not proud of it. I was raised to believe marriage vows meant something. But I am not sorry either. The DNA test results are attached to my will, witnessed and notarized. You have no biological claim to Isabella, no parental rights, no legal claim to custody. The man who fathered her will be contacted by my attorney. The choice of involvement will be his and my daughter's alone. Dante looked like he was about to be sick. Beside him, Alessia had gone completely still, color draining from her face. Now for you, Isabella, my dear mother-in-law. Isabella flinched as if she had been struck, her composure finally cracking. Detective Ramirez, Sophia said, I know you are there. I asked Vincent to invite you personally. Maya watched Ramirez move through the crowd, badge already in hand, her expression the professional mask of someone who knew this moment was coming. I believe Isabella Romano has been poisoning me, Sophia continued. It was in the herbal tea she brought to my hospital room every day. I saved the last cup. It is currently held as evidence by my attorney with fully documented chain of custody. Isabella tried to stand, to move toward the aisle, but Ramirez was there first, blocking her path with casual, practiced ease. I also saved samples of my blood and hair from the hospital, Sophia said. Also documented, also held as evidence. Test results should be back any day. I suspect they will show high levels of thallium, a heavy metal that mimics natural illness and is nearly impossible to detect without specific testing. Isabella's voice rose to a screech. This is insane. She was paranoid. Pregnancy affected her mind. I never poisoned anyone. On screen, Sophia seemed to have anticipated this exact outburst. Isabella will probably say I was mentally unstable, paranoid, delusional. But I was a straight-A student, a national merit scholar. I built a $43 million company while everyone thought I was doing bookkeeping. Does that sound like someone who lost touch with reality? The third revelation hit like a physical blow. Dante, let us discuss your gambling debts. The $2.8 million you owe to some very unpleasant people in Las Vegas. And let us talk about the embezzlement you have been committing at Romano Development to cover those debts. Documents flashed across the screen. Bank records, wire transfers, betting slips, a paper trail snaking through shell companies and offshore accounts, all perfectly documented and explained. I have already sent copies to the FBI, the IRS, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and your company's board of directors. By Monday, you will no longer have a position at Romano Development. By Friday, you will probably be in handcuffs. And those gentlemen in Las Vegas who have been waiting patiently for their money will be very interested to learn their debtor has no way to pay them back. Dante was shaking now, visible tremors running through his body, sweat breaking out on his forehead. His $5,000 suit suddenly looked like a cheap costume. But Sophia was not finished. Oh, and Alessia, one more thing. Alessia, who had been slowly trying to inch away from Dante, froze. I know you have been selling Dante's insider information to Michael Castellano, his biggest business rival. I have the emails, the Venmo payments, the text messages where you called Dante a useful idiot who is too arrogant to realize he is being played. The screen showed a text conversation. Alessia's face crumbled. Dante, your mistress has been destroying your career from inside while you were busy trying to destroy me. She has been working for your enemy this entire time, feeding him every piece of valuable information you were foolish enough to share. You thought she loved you. She thought you were a stepping stone to something better. I suppose that makes you perfect for each other. Dante spun toward Alessia, eyes filled with rage. You were working for Castellano. Alessia's composure shattered completely. Dante, I can explain. It was not like that. I was protecting myself in case things went bad. You were selling company information. You embezzled millions. I just made sure I would be taken care of when you screwed everything up. They screamed at each other right there in the front pew while 300 people watched and dozens of phones recorded. Sophia's funeral had turned into the most dramatic spectacle any of them had ever witnessed. Never underestimate a quiet woman, Sophia's voice said from the screen, cutting through the chaos. Still waters do not just run deep. Sometimes they are hiding a tsunami. And sometimes that tsunami spent 5 years learning exactly where all the fault lines are. The video continued and Sophia's face filled the screen one last time, her expression softer now, almost peaceful. I did not fight the poisoning, Dante. I documented it. Every symptom, every visit, every spoonful of tea. I let your mother kill me because I knew it would destroy you both. My death was the final piece of evidence. You thought you were watching me die. I was watching you hang yourselves. Her eyes seemed to look directly at Dante. You told me I was nothing without you. You said I would end up exactly where I started. You were wrong. Isabella will inherit $43 million, legitimate businesses built on my intelligence and work ethic, and the knowledge that her father is a criminal and her grandmother is a murderer. She will never carry your name. She will carry mine, Sophia Eleanor Ricci, and she will know that her mother loved her enough to sacrifice everything to protect her future. The final image was Sophia smiling, not the weak smile of a dying woman, but the fierce, triumphant smile of someone who had won. The video ended. Silence. Then screaming. Then the sound of handcuffs clicking shut. Police cars had pulled up during the video. Detective Ramirez had called for backup because she knew what was coming, ready to act on 5 years of carefully documented evidence. Isabella Romano was escorted out of the cathedral in handcuffs, her screams echoing off the vaulted ceilings. She tried to use her family name, her lawyers, her connections. None of it made a difference. I have rights, Isabella shrieked. I want my attorney. This is defamation. That woman was insane. I never poisoned anyone. The lab results came back 2 days later. Thallium, just as Sophia had predicted. Slow-acting poison that builds up over time, mimicking infection and organ failure. Isabella had been administering it for weeks, maybe months, with cold precision. She would spend the rest of her life in prison. Dante was served with federal subpoenas before he left the cathedral. The SEC, FBI, RS. His company fired him by end of business, releasing a statement calling him a disgrace and embarrassment. His assets were frozen pending investigation. The tickets to Costa Rica in his desk drawer would never be used. The Las Vegas creditors came looking 3 days later. Dante was in federal custody, denied bail as a flight risk, so he was safe when 2 very large men showed up at his empty penthouse demanding their money. They left disappointed, but men like that have long memories. Alessia Marchetti was arrested on 22 counts of insider trading, conspiracy to commit securities fraud, and being an accessory to financial crimes. Her mugshot went viral within hours. Mascara running, hair a mess, designer dress wrinkled from the holding cell. Her Instagram followers dropped from 92,000 to less than 6,000 overnight. The comments were brutal. This is what happens when you trade your morals for a married man. Imagine losing everything for a guy who was already losing it all. She really thought she was the main character. Plot twist, she was the cautionary tale. Maya watched all of this unfold from the sidelines, feeling a strange mix of victory and sadness. Sophia had won. She had outsmarted everyone who ever looked down on her. She had done it from beyond the grave. But she was still gone, and no amount of justice could bring her back. 2 weeks after the funeral, someone reached out to Maya through Vincent Moretti. When they met at a quiet coffee shop in Evanston, Maya was not sure what to expect. He was nervous, fidgeting with his cup in a way that did not match the confident businessman Maya had researched online. His name was James Chen. He was 41 years old, successful, well-dressed in a way that suggested wealth without screaming about it. But it was his eyes that caught Maya's attention. They were kind and genuine and filled with the same grief she was feeling. "I loved her," he said quietly, his voice breaking slightly. "Sophia. We only had 4 months together, but I really loved her. She was the most incredible woman I ever met. Smart and strong and funny, and she had no idea how extraordinary she was." He looked down at his hands. She did not want to leave Dante at first. She thought she could fix the marriage, save it somehow. She kept saying she made a commitment, had to try everything before giving up. By the time she realized the marriage could not be saved, she was pregnant. Then everything fell apart. He showed Maya a photograph. Sophia on a beach somewhere, laughing at the camera, hair blowing in the wind. She looked happier than Maya had seen her in years, maybe happier than ever. "I did not know about Isabella," James said. "Not until the funeral and the DNA test. Sophia never told me she was pregnant with my child. I think she was trying to protect me. Or maybe protect herself. She knew Dante would destroy her if he found out." He looked up, eyes glistening. "I want to be part of Isabella's life. I want to help raise her, give her everything Sophia would have wanted. Not because of money or inheritance. Because she is my daughter, and loving her is the only way I have left to love her mother." Maya studied him across the table, this man Sophia had chosen, even if just for a short time, even in secret. She saw what Sophia must have seen. Kindness. Authenticity. Someone real in a world full of men like Dante Romano. "Isabella needs a father," Maya said carefully. "She needs someone who will love her for who she is, not what she represents. Can you be that person?" "Yes," James said without hesitation. "I can. I will. I promise you, Maya." Maya kept her promise to Sophia. In the weeks that followed, they worked out an arrangement. Maya would be Isabella's legal guardian, while James was formally recognized as her biological father. He set up trusts and college funds, but what mattered more was that he was there every day. He learned to change diapers and mix bottles and sing lullabies that sent Isabella to sleep. He was not fulfilling an obligation. He genuinely wanted to be a father, and that was when a small part of Maya started believing they were going to be all right. A full year passed. Life pushed forward stubbornly even when grief made each day feel impossible. Maya took the bar exam and passed on the first try, becoming a licensed attorney fueled by Sophia's memory and a sense of purpose she had never known. As Isabella's guardian, the trust provided her with a salary, enough to stop worrying about rent and start building the future Sophia would have wanted. Isabella was thriving. A happy, healthy 1-year-old with her mother's dark eyes and James's warm smile. She found joy in everything, laughing and reaching for the world with pure happiness that made Maya understand why Sophia fought so hard. James relocated to Chicago, renting an apartment 2 floors above Maya's. Close enough to be constant in Isabella's life without crowding the unique family they were creating. They were not romantic partners. Their bond was something different, perhaps stronger. They were partners in the most important job either would ever have. Ritchie Financial Solutions continued expanding, now valued at $70 million and projected to hit $100 million within another year. Sophia had personally selected the new CEO, leaving meticulous instructions for the company's direction. She also established an endowment funding scholarships for children of single mothers, named the Eleanor Ritchie Scholarship Fund, honoring the woman who spent her life working so her daughter could have opportunities she never did. They kept Isabella's first birthday party small but perfect. Maya's apartment filled with pink balloons, a banner spelling out "Happy First Birthday, Isabella" in uneven letters. Only a handful of guests, but they were the most important people. James, Vincent Moretti, a few close friends, the people who had loved Sophia and would now love her daughter. As everyone settled, Maya rolled a television into the living room. She explained that Sophia had left videos for Isabella, one for every major milestone. First birthday, first day of school, first heartbreak, graduation, wedding day. Sophia wanted them played at the right moments. A hush fell over the room. Then Sophia's face filled the screen, clearly in her hospice bed, but with lipstick applied and hair fixed. trying to look like her old self even as her body failed. The medical equipment was visible in the background, but she had framed the shot to push it aside. So typically Sophia, always concerned with presentation right to the end. "My darling Isabella," she began, her voice fragile but full of warmth and love the recording could not diminish. "Happy first birthday, baby girl. If you are watching this, it means I am not there to hold you or kiss your cheeks, or watch you smash cake all over your face and laugh at the wonderful mess you make." She smiled and for a moment looked almost healthy, almost like the Sophia Maya had known for 14 years. "I am so sorry I could not stay. I fought so hard, Isabella, harder than I ever fought for anything. But some battles cannot be won, at least not the way we want. Sometimes being a fighter means knowing when to let go and trusting the people you love to carry on the work you started." Her eyes shone with emotion, but she did not let tears fall. Sophia was always stronger than anyone realized. "I need you to know something important. Everything I accomplished, everything that truly mattered, I did for you. I did not build a company because I loved money or success or proving people wrong, although that part was satisfying. I built it to protect you. I knew there would be people who would try to take what belongs to you, who would look at you and only see opportunity for themselves. I wanted you to have armor, resources, independence. I wanted to make sure you would never depend on anyone else to survive, so that when you choose to let people into your heart, it will be because you want them there, not because you have no choice." She paused, taking a shaky breath. "Be brave, Isabella. Be kind and be smart. Work hard, but never so hard you forget to laugh. Love with all your heart, but never so much you lose who you are. Stand up for those who cannot stand up for themselves. Question everything, especially when people tell you not to. And Isabella, one more thing, the most important thing I will ever tell you." Her eyes locked onto the camera, staring through the screen across time and death itself. "Never let anyone tell you that you are nothing without them. You are everything. You are my everything. You are the daughter of Sophia Eleanor Ricci Romano. And that means you have strength inside you that no one, not even you, can imagine yet. I will love you forever and always. No matter what happens, no matter how much distance is between us. Happy birthday, sweetheart." Then the video ended. The room filled with tears. James held Isabella tightly, his cheeks wet, whispering something soft into her hair. Even Vincent Moretti was dabbing his eyes with a handkerchief. "She's not really gone, is she?" Maya whispered to herself. "No," James said quietly, overhearing. "As long as Isabella has these videos, she is not gone at all." A letter arrived at Maya's law office 3 days later. No return address, but the postmark was from the federal detention center where Dante was awaiting trial. Maya's hands were steady as she opened it. Nothing he could say could hurt her or Sophia or the future they had built from the wreckage of his betrayal. "Maya," the letter began in Dante's handwriting. "This is not over. My lawyers are reviewing the DNA evidence. Something does not add up. As soon as I prove Isabella is my daughter, I am coming for custody. I am coming for the trust. I am coming for everything Sophia stole from me. See you in court." "Dante." Maya supposed she should have been scared. A year before, a letter like that would have thrown her into panic. But she had spent 12 months learning to think like Sophia, to plan for every possibility, to gather evidence, to be ready for this exact moment. She picked up the phone. "Vincent, it is Maya." He sent a letter. "Yes, threatening to fight for custody. I know. Sophia was ready for this. She slid open the top drawer of her desk. Inside was a thick folder she had never touched, labeled in Sophia's neat handwriting. Phase 2. If he threatens Isabella, open only if necessary. She broke the seal and started reading. Documents, photos, audio recordings, a USB drive marked insurance. Tucked inside was a handwritten note from Sophia, written during the last weeks of her life. "Maya," it said, "if you are reading this, Dante is still fighting. Some men never learn. They get knocked down but get right back up and keep swinging, not because they think they can win, but because fighting is the only way they know how to live. Phase 1 was the funeral, the public revelations, his arrest, the humiliation. I hoped that would be enough, that he would crawl away and leave Isabella alone. But I knew him, Maya. I knew him better than he knows himself. That is why I prepared Phase 2. He has no idea what I discovered during those 5 years documenting his crimes, what I saved, what I held back just for this moment. He thinks the funeral was everything. He believes I played all my cards. He is so wrong. Finish him, Maya. Do it for me, for Isabella, and for every woman who was ever told she was nothing without the man tearing her apart. Love always, Sophia. P.S. Tell Isabella her mama says hello, and tell Dante checkmate. A smile spread across Maya's face, the same confident, fierce, ready smile Sophia wore in her video. Oh, Sophia, Maya whispered to herself. You brilliant, terrifying, absolutely magnificent woman. How many more surprises did you leave behind? She began going through the folder contents. Names, dates, evidence of crimes that made the funeral revelations look like minor infractions. More than enough to lock Dante away for decades, to shatter what remained of his reputation, to guarantee he would never threaten Isabella or anyone else again. Outside her office window, the city stretched in every direction, millions of lives playing out their own stories. Somewhere in federal custody, Dante Romano was probably congratulating himself for his threatening letter. Believing he still had control, moves to make, some chance. He was deeply mistaken. Sophia had made certain of that. Maya pulled out her phone to call Vincent, to set phase 2 into motion, to complete what her best friend started. Justice is patient, Maya thought, remembering words that appeared on screen at the end of Sophia's memorial video. But she never forgets. And neither would Maya. And that is the story of how Sophia Romano, a woman everyone completely misjudged, a woman they called trash and irrelevant and nothing without her husband, proved every single one of them wrong from beyond the grave. She taught us all something important that day. Never underestimate a quiet woman. Never believe silence is the same as weakness. And never think that money and status can shield you from consequences of your own cruelty. If this story touched you, if it made you feel angry or hopeful, if it reminded you of your own resilience, I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below and tell me what would you have done if you were in Sophia's position. Would you have fought for justice the same way? And if you have someone in your life who needs to hear this story today, someone who might feel trapped or powerless or like they have no choice, please share this with them. Sometimes a story is exactly what a person needs to remember how strong they really are. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another story. Because here on Best Heart Stories we believe in justice, we believe in karma, and we believe that the quietest people are always the ones you need to watch out for most. Thank you for staying with me all the way to the end. I will see you in the next story. Before you go, remember this. Sophia's story is not just about revenge. It is about knowing your worth when everyone around you tries to convince you that you have none. It is about playing the long game when the world expects you to break. It is about building your own power quietly, patiently, strategically until the day you are ready to use it. If this story gave you strength, if it reminded you that you are more powerful than anyone has given you credit for, drop a comment and tell me what you would have done in Sophia's shoes. Hit that like button if you believe in karma. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe with notifications on because we have more stories coming that will remind you exactly how strong you really are.